This happened a few months ago. I'd been working night shifts at Brookhaven Hospital for almost 5 years. I thought I knew all the sounds and quirks of the place. But that night, it was different. I still can't shake it. It began around 2 a.m. I was making my rounds, checking on a post-surgery patient. Then I heard laughter. It floated down the dim corridor, light and playful. I paused. Was I imagining things? I stepped out of the room and followed the sound. But as soon as I rounded the corner, it stopped. My heart raced. I stood there, cold air rushing past me from the AC, feeling a chill creep up my spine. I brushed it off. Maybe I was just tired. Later, I felt cold spots near the beds. It was strange. One night, near Mrs. Thompson's room, I noticed the air thicken. She was awake, chatting about a woman who visited her often, but visiting hours were over. I tried to dismiss it as her medication playing tricks. Still, it unnerved me. Then came the chart incident. I found it on the nursing station counter. It was Kevin's chart. He had passed away a week earlier. I hadn't touched it. Panic washed over me. The notes inside were written in a different hand, scrawled hastily. I felt something twist in my stomach. Who wrote this? I looked around. No one was there. I was alone. As I walked through the empty halls that night, the flickering light at the end caught my eye. I headed towards it, my footsteps echoing. As I got closer, I saw a shadow. A figure stood still in the light. "Excuse me?" I called out, but it just faded away. I hesitated, heart pounding, but the emptiness swallowed any courage I had. That evening I felt like something was watching me. The laughter returned, faint and distant. Was I going crazy? I couldn't shake the feeling. The hospital had secrets. If only the walls could talk. But here's the thing that really got me. As I passed Mrs. Thompson's room again, I heard her whispering. I leaned in closer and she was talking to someone. "I promise, I'll join you soon." Her eyes were fixed on an empty corner of the room. Goosebumps spread across my arms. "Mrs. Thompson?" I asked gently. She looked at me, confused as if I hadn't spoken. "I'm just waiting," she said softly, still staring at the corner. I felt a shiver run down my spine. What was happening? That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it all. The laughter, the cold spots, the figure, and now Mrs. Thompson's whispered conversation with nothing. I was scared. I wanted answers, but I wasn't sure I wanted to dig deeper. Then, as I turned to leave, I heard that laughter again, closer this time. It wrapped around me, haunting and sweet. I could almost hear the words. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to run, but my feet felt planted to the ground. I realized just how deep the mystery went, and I felt an eerie pull to confront whatever lingered in the dark. I took a shaky breath, ready to step into the unknown. What was waiting for me down that hallway? As I stepped further down the hallway, the laughter echoed again, tugging at the edges of my mind. I forced myself to move toward it, but my body felt heavy. Each step felt like wading through thick fog. The lights flickered overhead, casting dancing shadows on the walls. I glanced at the room numbers as I passed, my heart racing as I approached the end of the corridor where it twisted into darkness. Then I saw it. A flicker of light coming from room 204, a patient's room that had been empty for days. The door was slightly ajar, swaying gently as if inviting me inside. Was someone in there? I hesitated, my mind racing. I remembered the rumors about room 204. They said it was haunted. It didn't matter, I had to know what was happening. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was dark, except for a faint glow from the bedside lamp, illuminating a figure sitting in the chair. My heart thudded in my chest. "Hello?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure turned slowly. It was Mrs. Thompson, the frail woman from down the hall, now wearing a soft smile that didn't seem real. "You came," she said, her voice hardly audible. "How did you get in here?" I asked, puzzled. Visiting hours were long over, and I distinctly remembered checking her room before. "I'm just visiting," she replied, her gaze turning back to the corner of the room. "She's waiting for me." Before I could respond, the laughter returned, clearer now, like a soft melody. I felt a chill sweep through the room. Mrs. Thompson's eyes lit up, and she stretched her hand toward the corner. "Don't be shy, dear. Come meet her." I followed her gaze, but nothing was there, just shadows clinging to the corner. "Mrs. Thompson, who are you talking to?" I asked, apprehension seeping into my voice. "She's so lovely." Mrs. Thompson beamed, her expression blissful. "You'd love her too." I glanced around the room, the coldness creeping in again. "You shouldn't be here," I urged, feeling a wave of dread. Just then, I noticed the chart on the counter by the door, Kevin's chart. It hadn't been there before. I felt my breath quicken. "I need to get the nurse," I stammered. I didn't wait for an answer. As I reached the door, Mrs. Thompson's voice stopped me cold. "You're not scared of her, are you?" A chill ran down my spine. I turned, and the room felt different, more oppressive. Before I could respond, the lights flickered violently and the laughter transitioned into cries. I stumbled back, the noise cutting through me. In a split second, the room felt alive, the air thick with something unexplainable. Then everything went dark. I stood frozen, disoriented. Where had the light gone? I reached for the door, but it felt far away. Panic bubbled inside me. I could hear whispers now, soft and insistent. "Join us." They beckoned like a distant song. I was trapped. Something had taken hold of my mind. I had to get out. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. But as I moved, a hand brushed against my shoulder. I spun around, my heart racing. That's when I saw it. A figure in the darkness, smiling. My pulse quickened and I struggled to scream as everything in me screamed to run, but I was frozen, caught between fear and the unknown. The figure took a step forward, its smile widening in a way that felt wrong. I could see the outline of its face, a flicker like a dying bulb struggling to stay lit. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. My mind raced. What was happening? "Are you alone?" the figure whispered, its voice like ice. I shook my head, backing away until my back hit the cool wall behind me. "That's good," it continued, taking another step closer. "You don't want to be alone." I wanted to dart past it, to push through the door and run down the hallway, but my legs were rooted to the floor. Just then, the sounds of laughter erupted again, louder this time, mingling with ominous whispers that seemed to swirl around me. Then, just as quickly as it began, the laughter stopped. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. I hesitated, the figure still advancing. I could feel a cold breeze brush against my skin, and it chilled me to the bone. "Who are you?" I finally managed to croak, my voice trembling. A shiver ran through the room, and the figure chuckled softly, an unsettling sound that sent tremors through my body. "I'm your friend," it replied. But there was malice hidden beneath the words that echoed in my mind. In that moment, I glanced back at Mrs. Thompson. She was still seated in the chair, her gaze fixated on the corner, as if she were in a trance. "Help her," the figure urged, pointing at Mrs. Thompson. "She needs you more than you know." A thought crossed my mind. What if the laughter, the whispers, and even the presence of the figure had a connection? I couldn't help but want to scream for someone to come help, but the fear paralyzed me. In a moment of desperate bravery, I lunged toward the door, my instinct kicking in. I collided with the frame, feeling the cold wood slam against my shoulder. I turned around to see the figure dissolve into shadows, its laughter echoing as if it were laughing at my feeble attempt to escape. I stumbled out of the room and into the hall, gasping for air as I feverishly glanced back into room 204. The light flickered once, then went out, plunging the room into darkness. But I didn't stop. I ran, racing past other patient rooms, my pulse thundering. When I finally reached the nurse's station, I was out of breath. You have to send someone to room 204, I panted, hands gripping the counter for support. Mrs. Thompson, something's wrong. The nurse looked at me with confusion. Room 204 is unoccupied, she said gently. No one has been in there for days. My stomach dropped. I felt like the ground had vanished beneath me. But I just saw her. I just spoke with her. The nurse frowned, her expression turning serious. You must have been mistaken. It could be the medication playing tricks on your mind. No, I shouted, shaking my head. You don't understand. Something is wrong. Just then the flickering lights overhead went dark, leaving the station dimly lit. I could hear the laughter again, louder now, echoing in the silence. Then came the whispers, rising up like a gust of wind. Join us! Join us! And in that moment I understood. I was not alone, and whatever had been in room 204 wasn't done with me yet. I stood frozen, the simmering fear in my chest pulling me backward. I couldn't focus on anything but the laughter. It surrounded me, filling my ears and clawing at my mind. This can't be real, I whispered to myself, desperately seeking comfort in logic. Come on, let's get you some water, the nurse said, but her voice felt distant. I barely registered her as I stepped back, my pulse racing. The whispers grew louder, echoing in my mind. Join us. Join us. No! I shouted, hands pressed to my ears trying to block it out. I could feel the animalistic urge to flee rising within me. I turned from the nurse and bolted down the corridor. I didn't care where I was going. I just needed to get away. The hallway stretched endlessly, the fluorescent lights flickering like fireflies that refused to follow the rules of nature. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting the figure from room 204 to materialize behind me. Instead, I saw shadows twisting, warping into shapes that writhed just out of sight. I stumbled into the break room, slamming the door shut behind me. I leaned against it, panting and trying to catch my breath. The room felt eerily still, a stark contrast to the chaos vibrating in my mind. I tried to gather my thoughts, but it was like trying to catch smoke with my bare hands. That's when I noticed something on the table. A small pile of magazines. The top one had a picture of Mrs. Thompson on it. My heart raced. It was an article from a few years ago. She was a well-known activist championing mental health awareness. Why is this here? I murmured, fingers trembling as I picked it up. Then I saw the second magazine. The headline read, Mysteries of the Abandoned Wing. A shiver ran through me. That part of the hospital had been closed for years, they said. No one ever went there. What does it have to do with any of this? Before I could process it, the laughter erupted again. It seeped through the walls, pulsing like a heartbeat. We are waiting. I squeezed the magazine in frustration, my knuckles whitening. I turned abruptly to the door. The thought of staying here felt suffocating. I had to know what was going on. The laughter and whispers tugged at me, a dark melody weaving into my thoughts. They were calling me. I pushed the door open and dashed down the hall, determined to make sense of the chaos. I approached the entrance to the abandoned wing, my hands trembling. It was supposed to be off limits, but the curiosity gnawed at me. What if the figure was somehow connected to that part of the hospital? As I stepped closer, the dim light flickered again, and I felt an icy breeze wash over me. Fear threatened to hold me back, but something else was pulling me forward. I took a deep breath and stepped into the darkness. The door creaked open, revealing a hallway cloaked in shadows. That's when I heard a voice, clearer than before. We've been waiting for you. My heart sank. The figure had been right all along. I was not alone. I took one hesitant step inside, but the air grew colder, and I realized this was just the beginning. As I stepped into the abandoned wing, the darkness swallowed me. The laughter echoed faintly in my ears, a cruel reminder that something awaited me within these walls. I squinted, trying to discern shapes and shadows, But all I saw was a corridor stretching into oblivion. That feeling of being watched crept back in, a caress of goosebumps that made my skin prickle. The voice echoed again, "We've been waiting for you." It didn't sound threatening, but there was a chill in the way it coiled around my thoughts. I hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment. Curiosity gnawed at me, but caution whispered to turn back. I pressed forward, my footsteps echoing softly on the cracked tiles. Each step felt heavy, almost like I was stepping into a different time. The air was stale, a musty scent that hinted at years of neglect. As I moved deeper, the corridor branched off into two paths. Both were equally dark, but I felt a tug towards the right. That's when I noticed something on the wall. Faded drawings covered the surface, crude stick figures entwined with words that blurred together. "Join us," was scrawled in a jagged hand, while others begged for help. I ran my fingers over it, shivers chasing down my spine. Who had drawn these, and why did they feel so urgent? Suddenly a door creaked open further down the hall, drawing my attention. It was an old examining room, the kind with limited light and rusted instruments still setting on the counter. The laughter faded, replaced by the sound of a door slamming shut behind me. Panic swelled. I whipped around, half expecting to see someone there, but only shadows remained. My instinct screamed for me to flee, but as I turned again toward the examining room, I saw a figure standing in the dim light, a woman, her back to me, wearing a faded hospital gown. Her hair hung in tangled curls down her back. I was frozen, my heart racing in my chest, unable to comprehend. "Please help us," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I felt the weight of her plea wash over me, but as I took a step closer, the air shifted. It became electric, almost crackling around me. Suddenly her form flickered like a broken image on a television screen. I blinked, and she was gone, leaving only the cold metal tools behind. "What the hell is happening?" I muttered, stumbling backward. I searched the room for any signs of life, but it was empty. Desperation clawed at me. I couldn't remain here and wait for whatever that was to come for me again. As I rushed back toward the hallway, a sound caught my ear, a soft melody weaving through the whispers. "We are waiting. Join us." It was closer now, enveloping me with every frantic step I took. The urge to escape surged within me again. I found myself back at the entrance, breathing heavily, ready to bolt out of this nightmare. But as I reached for the door, it slammed shut with a deafening force. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. I wasn't done yet. Whatever was happening, it wasn't finished with me. That's when I noticed the old chart taped to the door. I peeled it back, and my blood ran cold. The name at the top read, Evelyn Hale. Below it, a note, "Last seen in the abandoned wing." I had to find out who she was, but with the door now the only barrier between me and the shadows, I realized I was not just investigating, I was becoming part of their story. I sank to the floor, the weight of Evelyn Hale's name pressing on my chest. The dim light from the corridor flickered, pulsing as if taunting me for staying. "Evelyn," I whispered. I needed to know more. The urge to flee warred with the need for answers. I whispered her name again, louder this time. "Evelyn, what happened to you?" But the only response was the echo of my own voice, bouncing back from the walls like a ghostly taunt. I felt ridiculous talking to thin air, yet that feeling of urgency loomed over me, as if the shadows themselves were listening, leaning closer to choke me with secrets. Slowly, I stood up, heart still racing. I needed to find that examining room again. The corridor felt longer now, with every step met by whispers that seemed to dart from every crevice. I rounded the corner, and the room appeared much like it had before, a haven of darkness harboring a past I could only assume was tragic. It felt wrong to be here, invading a space that held so many unspoken horrors. I stepped inside, hoping to find some clue about Evelyn's fate. My hands trembled as I flicked on my phone flashlight, the beam slicing through the shadows. The old table still stood in the center of the room, instruments glinting menacingly. I stepped forward cautiously and turned my gaze to the walls. Then it hit me. A patch of clean wall among the drawings, a stark contrast that radiated urgency. Driven by instinct, I pressed my palm against the surface, feeling for hidden compartments. I wasn't sure what I expected, but I wasn't ready for the sharp click that echoed as a hidden panel swung open. Inside, a stack of yellowed papers lay crumpled and fragile. I unfolded the top sheet, trembling, my breath catching in my throat as I read the first line. Evelyn Hale, patient record. My heart raced. This was it. This was the reason I had come into the dark. I glanced quickly around the room, the weight of being watched stronger than ever. The report detailed her struggles with delirium, a descent into madness that started after a traumatic incident. It noted her desperate pleas for help, her obsession with being saved or freed. The last entries were chilling. Recommended treatment, isolation, and observation. Suddenly I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing from down the hall. My first instinct was to hide, but there was nowhere safe. I darted behind the door, pressing myself against the cold wall, breath caught in my throat. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by that haunting melody. We are waiting, join us. Something instinctual screamed in me to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. After a few moments that felt like an eternity, the footsteps stopped. I risked a glance out from my hiding spot, and my heart plummeted. A shadow lingered just outside the room, the figure partially illuminated by my phone's light. That's when I saw it, a glint of metal in its hand, reflecting back at me. Whatever it wasn't human. Fear pooled in my gut as the realization sunk in. I was not alone. In that instant, everything went dark. I was plunged into darkness, but not the comforting kind. It felt alive, suffocating. Panic clawed at my throat as I fumbled in my pocket for my phone. My fingers brushed against the cold screen, desperate for a flicker of light. When the screen finally blinked to life, I was blinded for a moment. But as my eyes adjusted, dread slithered back into my mind. The figure was still there, now closer. I could see its outline, a monstrous shape with unnaturally long limbs, moving with a fluidity that shouldn't belong to anything human. The glint of metal shone brighter, and for a split second, I thought it might be a weapon. "Stay back!" I shouted, surprising myself with the courage hidden in my fear. My voice bounced off the walls, a fragile challenge in the encroaching gloom. The figure didn't respond, but a soft whisper echoed back. "Join us." The words chilled my blood. Was this what Evelyn's report hinted at? The madness? I needed to get out, and I needed to get out now. I took a cautious step back, but then I hesitated. The door was behind me, and I could feel its weight against my spine. The figure shifted slightly, still watching. I wanted to bolt, but I was trapped. My stomach churned with anxiety, and I griped the report in my fist, the brittle paper crinkling under pressure. A sudden noise, like nails on wood, scraped through the air. The sound came from the depths of the hallway. Other voices, ethereal and haunting. They were calling for me. Help me. A soft, distant plea sent a wave of interference over my fear, submerging me in dread. Was it Evelyn? Had she returned, lingering in this desolate corridor? I thought of what I'd read, her obsession with being saved. Instinct kicked in again, and I swung my phone toward the figure. The beam sliced through the darkness, illuminating its gaunt face. I recoiled, heart thumping wildly. It was Evelyn, at least it looked like her. Hollow eyes stared back, voids of despair. "You have to set me free," she urged, extending a skeletal hand toward me. Paralyzed, I felt the weight of her plea. "What do you mean?" I whispered, barely able to hear my own voice. Outside reality, time slipped away. The noise from the hallway intensified, merging into a terrifying cacophony. They were all pleading. Then the lights flickered back on, blaring starkly. The sudden brightness flooded the room, revealing the surrounding walls covered in grotesque drawings of eyes and mouths, all crying out. The figure hesitated, its form becoming less defined in the light, and then darted back into the shadows, vanishing like smoke. My breath shuddered out, leaving me trembling. For a moment I was alone, breathless and confused. And yet, the whispers persisted. They stirred in the recesses of my mind, digging deeper. I glanced around the room, still reeling from what I had just witnessed. Then my phone buzzed in my hand, a notification breaking through the tension. Active emergency alert, search ongoing. My heartbeat quickened again. There was something more happening, something I needed to uncover. If Evelyn was right, and her cries echoed in those hallways, there had to be a connection. I couldn't feel safe here anymore. I had to move, but where? The echoes of longing pulled at me, leaving me standing on the brink of choice. I took a deep breath, preparing myself to find the truth. I stepped into the hallway, heart racing with urgency. The air was thick, almost electric, and I felt every step could unleash another terror. My phone buzzed again, and I glanced down. More alerts. Someone was still out there searching for something or someone. I checked the report again, scanning for anything I might have missed. Every word felt like it weighed a ton, but I saw nothing that pointed to an escape. The voices hadn't quieted. They flitted in and out, lingering just beyond my grasp. I glanced around, the sterile lights flickering overhead, creating an unsettling rhythm. Shadows danced around me, taunting, daring me to move further into the darkness. "Help me." It was Evelyn's voice again, sharper, more distinct. It cut through the clamor, pulling me deeper into a web I didn't want to navigate. I walked down the hallway, each step echoing ominously. The doors were mostly closed, some slightly ajar, revealing glimpses of the unsettling interiors, empty rooms scattered with medical equipment, unkempt beds, and the occasional flicker of movement. I felt eyes on me. Was I being watched? I turned suddenly, but only the breathing walls met my gaze. Then I heard it, a low hum, like a generator sputtering to life. It was coming from one of the rooms on my left. I approached, anxiety bubbling in my chest, and hesitated. Should I enter? But the whispering intensified, wrapping around my mind. I gripped the doorknob, my palms slick with sweat. With a deep breath, I twisted it open. The room was dark, but not entirely empty. A flickering monitor pulsed beside a figure lying still in bed, a band of light casting surreal shadows across her features. My heart sank. Another patient? But as I stepped inside, I realized the figure was covered in dark, splotchy marks. They moved like a swarm of insects, writhing in response to the rhythmic pulse of the monitor. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. "Help!" she croaked. The sound barely a whisper, yet so full of despair. It was different from Evelyn's call. This voice was steeped in resignation. I took a hesitant step closer. "What happened to you?" I asked, dread rising like bile. She opened her eyes, immense, empty voids. There was no life, no hope, just a deep abyss staring back at me. "Trapped." Her voice cracked. "You have to—" But before she could finish, an unearthly howl echoed from the hallway. It jolted me back. The flickering overhead lights shut off, plunging me into darkness again. Panic surged as I turned, fumbling for my phone. "Leave," the girl hissed, her voice becoming distorted. "Before it finds you." The atmosphere changed, turning heavy, and the walls felt like they were closing in. I didn't know what was hunting me. Was it the figure from before? Or was it something worse? I couldn't stay. Turning on my phone's flashlight, its weak beam wavered in the dark. That's when I saw it again, the edges of movement behind me, a tall silhouette creeping closer. I stumbled back, heart hammering, when suddenly a door slammed shut down the hall. My breath hitched. I needed to escape. Then I remembered something. The storage closet at the end of the corridor. It was my only option. I sprinted, pulse pounding in my ears, the shadows stretching and twisting as if alive. As I reached the door, I glanced back. The figure stood there, now more defined, and in its hands shimmered a blade of some kind. Panic surged. I couldn't think anymore. I just needed to hide. I yanked open the storage closet door and dove inside, slamming it shut behind me. The darkness enveloped me again, and the whispers returned, pulsing all around as the figure stalked closer. I tried to steady my breath, but I could feel its presence just beyond the door. And then, silence. The silence wrapped around me, thick and oppressive. I held my breath, straining to catch any sound beyond the door. My heart felt like it was thudding in my throat. I pressed my ear against the cool wood. It was too quiet. Just as I thought I might be safe, I heard it again. A low, guttural growl, resonating right outside my hiding place. The sound rippled through me, and I couldn't help but shudder. I couldn't stay here forever. Somehow, I had to escape. I reached for my phone, praying the battery hadn't died. The flashlight flickered, casting shadows across the cramped space. I glanced around. There were old boxes stacked high, dusty and forgotten. One of them toppled slightly, giving me an idea. I could create a distraction. Maybe it would buy me enough time to slip out while this thing was focused elsewhere. I bit my lip and cautiously nudged a box nearby. It fell to the floor with a thud that echoed in the otherwise still air. The growling stopped. I held my breath, waiting. Moments felt like hours. Then, the unmistakable sound of footsteps approached, heavy and deliberate. I braced myself. It was coming closer. Suddenly the door handle rattled. My heart dropped as I realized that my distraction hadn't worked. I pressed against the back wall, trying to make myself as small as possible. The blade flickered into view, glinting under the narrow cracks of light escaping the edges of the door. The door creaked open. I could see a dark figure silhouetted against the faint light in the hallway. It stood still, watching, listening. I barely breathed. The blade shimmered, its intentions clear. "Help?" A new voice whispered, this one familiar. "Evelyn." I strained to understand. Was she nearby? Was she the one who drew this thing toward me? Panic surged. The figure turned its head slightly, as if it heard her too. "Evelyn," I called out, shocking myself with the urgency in my voice. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Why did I do that? I should have stayed silent, but now it was too late. The figure stepped further into the closet, towering over me. My hands trembled and I instinctively raised my phone to illuminate the darkness. In that moment I caught a glimpse of its face. It was not human. The eyes were large and hollow, blacker than the night surrounding us. The features stretched unnaturally, twisted into a menacing grin. Without thinking, I lunged for the door. The figure lunged at the same time, and I barely managed to squeeze through just as its fingertips grazed my shoulder. I stumbled into the hallway, now desperate for escape. "Where are you?" I shouted, not caring if I alerted the creature. As I raced down the corridor, I tripped over a stray cart, sending supplies scattering across the floor. I didn't stop to look back. I just ran, adrenaline pushing me forward. Then, another voice joined the chorus, echoing through the halls. "You can't escape." I shot forward, feeling the air shift around me. The feeling of being hunted grew more intense with every step I took. That's when I saw it, a stairwell ahead, light spilling from the doors. It felt like the only way out, but as I raced toward it, I realized I wasn't alone. Shadows flickered behind me, and I could just make out the figure emerging from the darkness, blade in hand. "Faster," I urged myself, the words barely forming in my mind. The door loomed closer, but it felt miles away. What would happen if it caught up to me? The whispers were louder now, swirling around as I heaved against the door. Would I make it in time? Would the light lead to safety or deeper into the nightmare? I burst through the door and stumbled onto the staircase, gasping for air. My heart raced, a wild drum echoing in my chest as I took the stairs 2 at a time. The door behind me slammed shut, muffling the eerie whispers that felt like they were gaining ground. I surged upward, desperate to escape the lurking shadows of the lower floors, praying I wouldn't encounter any more horrors along the way. With every step, the light grew brighter, a beacon pushing back the encroaching darkness. I reached the top landing and pounded on the door for the emergency exit, my hands shaking with the weight of fear. Just when I thought I was going to implode from panic, the door creaked open and I tumbled outside into the fresh night air. I gasped, greedily inhaling the cool breeze while stumbling onto the hospital's loading dock. I didn't stop to look back. Even the slightest sound, a breeze rustling leaves, made my chest tighten with anxiety. I sprinted toward my car, my legs feeling like lead weights but fueled by sheer adrenaline. I fumbled with my keys, heart in my throat, and clumsily unlocked the door. My mind raced with thoughts of Evelyn, the figure and that darkness lurking within the walls of Brookhaven Hospital. Had I really just escaped? Or would it find me again? With the engine sputtering to life, I quickly glanced at the hospital. The lights flickered ominously, shadows dancing across the windows like restless spirits. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were all still there, waiting for someone else to come too close. I pulled away, leaving my job and the horrifying memories behind me. But as I drove away, I couldn't drown out the chaos in my own mind. It didn't matter if I had escaped Brookhaven. Something deep within nagged at me. I was part of the story now, forever bound to the darkness I'd encountered. I couldn't stop thinking about those voices. Help us. Join us. What secrets had those walls hidden? Would Evelyn and the others find peace? I had left them behind, but it felt like they clawed at my conscience. Relief warred with guilt. I moved to a different city soon after that night. Sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet, I wonder if the whispers still haunt Brookhaven's halls, whispering to someone else who pulls the short straw of curiosity. What really happened to Evelyn? Did anyone ever care to look deeper? It's been months since I left, and yet I haven't quite shaken off that cold sensation of being watched, of having a piece of me trapped there in the darkness. I can still hear the laughter in my dreams, mingling with cries for help, reminding me that some walls are best left unturned. And every once in a while I dare to ponder, was it all just a figment of my imagination, or were those voices truly calling to me? The truth still eludes me, shrouded in shadows. Some things are better left unanswered.